allegiance today?
Sure, I'm happy to,
Okay,
yes.
thank
Ladies and gentlemen, I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of
America, and to the
and
republic
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. And although the meeting is a public meeting, I do not see anybody in attendance other than the members of this subcommittee. So there is no public forum right now. And we have no, let's see, we have an agenda for today, which I hope you all had a chance to look at and
No,
no.
That's my fault.
Let's see. Have the others of you seen it? The agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda from someone?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Give me a second to quickly read it.
Okay, John.
No, I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and because we're online, we have to do this virtually here. So John Egg, are you an aye?
Aye.
And Joseph Ehart?
Aye.
And Crystal Kadoy?
Aye.
Thank you. Crystal, am I saying your last name right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good. Okay, and there's no minutes to approve because this is the first time that this group has met. Do you all know each other?
I know Crystal.
A little.
Okay, well, maybe it wouldn't hurt for us to do quick introductions. I'm Tegan McLean, and I'm the Community Engagement and Inclusion Administrator, and I am also the liaison for the Public Art or for the Art Commission, which is why I'm here, and sort of heading things up this evening. Let's see here. Rosanna, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure, I'm Rosanna Cacao. I'm also one of the staff liaison for the Parks and Rec Commission. Have been a staff liaison to the Arts Commission. Thank you, Tegan, for coming in. Otherwise, I'd probably be doing 3 commissions, but just I think I know most of you, except for I've never met Joyita.
Hi. Do you want me to go now, Tegan?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I am part of the Milpitas Arts Commission, and I've been with that for about a year and really enjoy that position very much. And I am an artist by trade, a silk painting artist, and have a business that I work. I usually am very busy with, but not so much now. And I also work for Milpitas High School, their resource specialist group. So that's their special ed group, helping students with their work and trying to help them graduate from high school. And I've lived here for about 20 years, and I've raised 2 kids, one who's in college and one who's in high school. Thank you.
And Crystal, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Crystal. I with the Park and Rec Commission, and I was interested in this topic, so I'm glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you. John?
Yeah, I'm the chair of the Arts Commission. Actually, Joyita didn't mention that she's vice chair, so we're the terrible two. I've lived in Milpitas for over 20 years. I'm still not quite sure. I think it's 23 years. I have one son who served 2 tours in the Marines and now is settled in Denver. and I have 4 grandchildren.
Joe?
Let me see. So I'm involved with a number of things. I'm a new alternate member of the PRCRC. And then I'm very much involved in the Milpitas Historical Society. I'm treasurer, but perhaps more to the point of PRCRC and things, is I'm the director of archives. I'm the director of the educational outreach program, where in particular, our outreach at the moment is focused on elementary school, 3rd grade, but I've also done 1st grade. They've also asked me sometimes to do 1st grade. And in particular, I've had some involvement, appropriate to the background here, in this project of bringing the Alvista Adobe online. I'm kind of the historian, accuracy purposes, among other things, trying to help. I'm not actually writing the content per se, but I'm guiding them in terms of the accuracy of content that they come up with. So anyway, so that's my kind of background. Oh, I also am like the lead docent in the annual tour, which of course we had to suspend in the COVID period. So many things had to get stopped, but it's usually a bus tour once a year around June. And what'll be fun is I've been waiting for the day when the Alvista Adobe finally gets open. Yeah,
Great.
really looking forward to that.
Thank you all for being here. Becky Strauss is also a member of this subcommittee, and she's not here right now, but I imagine she'll join us in just a bit. Mike, would you mind putting up my PowerPoint for me? Thank you. So we are here today to talk about the Park Marker Project. Next slide, please. Oh, I didn't change the date. So let's see. Oh, you know what? I think I've given you the wrong one now that I see that the date's wrong and I see that your slides don't match what I have, Mike. So let me try to remedy this situation. I've clearly sent you the wrong thing. Mike, I think I'll try to send you the correct one and I will try to share my screen. Sorry, everybody. Too many presentations. Try to get the screen sharing first.
Whilst you're doing that,
Was I successful? Can you guys see that?
yeah.
Okay.
Looks good.
Looks good? Okay, great. So I will just try to run it myself. And I wanted to start by going over our subcommittee goals. This subcommittee's mission is to develop the parameters for historical art markers or art historical markers in the parks. The goal is for us to come up with a plan for installing some sort of physical marker to convey the history of the parks and honor the people the parks are named after. And we would love to be able to do that in an artistic fashion. So hoping that this subcommittee will, over a fairly short period of time, come up with a style of marker that we think works and come up with some content, both some standardized information that we'd like to include on the markers, but also to look at the content that we can find through historical resources and actually get ready to draft that out. And also consider what kind of artists we might want to hire or use to create these markers. We will be developing a timetable for completing the markers and developing a budget and possible funding to recommend to the PRCRC and the Arts Commission. And those two commissions will make a recommendation to City Council. So I'd like to, let's see, go to the next slide, the timeline. So we're on meeting 1 today. So today I'm going to give you an overview of the parks that we're talking about and some samples of historical marker styles and some samples of public art styles. And I'm going to invite you to think creatively between now and our next meeting about what we might want to do. And hopefully at meeting number 2, which is currently scheduled for May 24th, you can rank order the marker styles and help us know which one is your first choice style, and also determine the desired content. And so that wouldn't be the particulars for each park, but it would be what kinds of information do you think is warranted on these markers. And then prioritize the parks. We are not going to be able to do all of the parks immediately, obviously. So it would be important for this body to determine which ones are most in need of a marker soonest, and then review some funding options. And then I'm not sure if at meeting 2, we will have everything that we need complete. So we'll have to look at a possible 3rd meeting if you have questions after meeting 2, or if our discussion needs to continue. So we are talking about 18 named parks in the city of Milpitas. And I have got the list here, and some of them have the person's whole name in the park name, like Ben Rogers Park, and others we just know them by the person's last name, like Cardoza Park, which is named after Tom Cardoza. And I've got one mystery park that I don't know the name. I don't know the full name of the person it's named after, and I'm still researching, but I bet Joe can probably tell me or find out for me. And that's Hall Memorial Park. So we know that it was named in the mid-70s, and I have yet to find anything specific on who it's named after.
Yeah, I don't know the individual, but I was talking to Harriet McGuire about this because, of course, she was married to Bob McGuire, who was the first director of parks. And we think it's James Hall, and probably an employee, but I just simply don't know who. Names that I think Peter Gill, for example, I don't know. Bob Peacoat, I don't know. But I believe James is the first name for Hall, and I can confirm that by email, but I'm pretty sure that that's correct.
Great. Well, you know more than I do at this point on that, so that's awesome. Thank you. So those are our 18 named parks that we're looking at. We have plenty of time to do a little bit more research on all these individuals. And,
one more correction, if I may.
Sure.
Because I just looked at Murphy Park. I'm pretty sure that that's wrong.
Oh, okay.
Leo was an administrator, but we used to, if they don't know where Murphy Park is, it's between, let me see, at the north end, Yosemite Drive, it's east of Park Victoria. The north end, roughly speaking, is Yosemite Drive, and the south end is Yellowstone. And there was a school, it's now a completely different school. It's a, let me see, it's not, anyway, the key is formerly it was an elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, it was Martin Murphy.
Oh.
Martin Murphy is a pioneer. Martin Murphy was actually, Martin Murphy, if you're really curious, one of the things is that he's the founder of Sunnyvale.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also a landowner here in Milpitas. Actually, his plot of land was substantial in size in terms of what used to be Rancho Milpitas. And his land was adjacent to John Sinnott's land. But anyway, because Murphy School, which was created and closed, Gertrude Abel is another elementary school that was opened and then subsequently closed. But anyway, there was Martin Murphy School, and it basically touches, in other words, it's basically the same strip of land, if you will, as Murphy Park. So I'm basically, I'd be inclined to say, without records, we should be like 95 to 99% certain that it's Martin Murphy because of the elementary school name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, Leo Murphy is indeed a person and definitely has history in Milpitas, but he's not one of the early pioneers. And Leo Murphy, so far as I know, is at the moment is not related to Martin Murphy.
Okay,
The
good to
and
know.
actually, yeah, and the Murphy are kind of a powerhouse family in the history of Santa Clara County.
Mhm.
So I would be inclined to say that Murphy Park is Martin Murphy Park.
Okay, good. Well, we'll have to see what we can, if you can find anything, help us find anything to make that 100% certain, but I'm glad that you're 98% certain, or however much it is. And thank you for that correction.
I did find out about it, so I can send you a picture or something. It is Martin Murphy Historical Park.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you, everybody. I also wanted to show you historical marker styles and let you know about this resource, the Historical Marker Database. It is by no means complete, but it has a lot of markers and gives you a sense of what's out there. We're basically looking, if we look at traditional historical markers, we're usually looking at bronze plaques, and they can be mounted on buildings or sidewalks, or there's an organization called Eclampus Vitus that has been very active in installing monuments throughout California, and I guess throughout the United States. So we'll look at a few samples in a sec. Obviously, when things are named after a person, sometimes there is a bust of the person, a bronze bust, that kind of a thing, or a statue. Both busts and statues are pretty pricey options. There's also a lot of historical markers now that are being done with interpretive signage. So let me show you what some of these look like. So the bronze former Ford assembly plant sign is at the Great Mall. There are these other types of bronze plaques that you see. The stone one in the upper right is from a park in Dublin, and that's one of the Eclampus Vitus type monuments where they're putting a bronze plaque on a little stone pedestal. These others are just things that I've found, and none of them are created by artists that I'm aware of, but it gives us a sense of, if you had a bronze plaque, the bronze plaque could potentially include artwork engraved on the plaque. It could potentially include the shape of the plaque, like the one in the center lower row. It could potentially include some sort of artistic monument that it's affixed to, instead of the stone monument that we've got on that Eclampus Vitus one. It could even include a pole, such as the one that's on the Roper Park sign. I cut it off, unfortunately, so you can't see that there's a pole there, but it's just a plain pole on this particular sign. But those give you some examples of how you might incorporate art into a bronze plaque if you were going with something really super traditional. But I also wanted to show, you some of the ones that are busts or statues. Again, real common, but on the pricier side to make those happen. Something that is sort of a newer way to do it would be bronze plaques or something that's embedded in the sidewalk. So you do see that one in the lower right-hand side is a historical plaque that's in San Francisco. They have a rainbow walk, and these are members of the LGBTQ community that had historic significance. So those are kind of what you'll see if you look at historic markers. Those are typically what's out there. And then there's the interpretive ones, which allow us to give more history and play with photographs or illustrations. Here are just some that are kind of in our area. The electrification one is from Allen Rock Park. The Leo Tank House, I believe, is also somewhere in Santa Clara County. Dante Park, I grabbed that from an East Coast city, and I'm not remembering now. I think it's in New Jersey. But certainly you can see there's a lot of text on that sign. So there's probably some middle ground between providing historical text and and pictures or drawings or something to tell us about the person. But we do want to include information about the person that the park is named after. So somehow or another, we're going to have text incorporated into our marker. Unless, of course, we did it electronically, which I hadn't even given a whole lot of thought to, but that is possible too. Also wanted to show you just some public art in parks to give you some examples of the variety there. And so these are pieces that are not intended to be historical markers necessarily. I didn't include any sculpture because I think you guys get the sense of what park sculptures look like. We've got some murals. The murals do happen to be historical murals. Top one's Austin, and the other, I believe, is in San Diego. So the top left, I think, is a restroom building or something similar to that. So that's an example of what you might be able to do with in a park. There's not a lot of walls in parks usually. We're going to go on some adventuring independently to sort of look at the parks that we're talking about, and maybe somebody will come back with some ideas of walls if you wanted to do murals. But murals, if you wanted to pursue that, you might have to create walls in some of these parks. They may not have something already there. Benches are another option. This tile bench that's on the lower left was obviously created by an artist, and you could do something like that where the bench is different from all other benches. The one on the right is actually a standard form that's used and has been painted by artists. So I'm sure you guys have seen or heard of the cows projects that cities have. If the subcommittee's decision was to go with something like a project that community members would work on, you might want to start with something like these fiberglass benches that people could paint. Other interesting things you can do, although I don't know that they lend themselves to historical markers, just going clockwise from the upper right-hand corner, you can have art shade sails in a park or shade structures, which can be quite beautiful and serve a purpose. I don't know if this subcommittee will ultimately decide that you'd like this marker to serve some park-related purpose in addition to its historical purpose and its artistic mission. The lower right-hand side is a trash can, And I don't know that we would necessarily want to honor people with trash cans named after, or, you know, highlighting them, but it shows you that you can use park furniture in an artistic way and create something beautiful from it. Lower left-hand side, a bus stop. I put that one in not because it's a bus stop, but because I wanted to show the fact that you can etch stuff on glass. You can etch photographs on glass. You can etch text on glass. So that's an option. Screens are also something that can be used in parks. If you have, you know, a screen sort of protecting the, you know, privacy of the restroom door, or hiding some sort of park equipment if there's a generator or something that we're trying to hide. So those are just some examples of kinds of park things that we do see in parks using art. So now I guess I would like to open the floor. We have about half an hour for our meeting, and I just wanted to hear feedback on what you saw tonight. See if you have some information that things that you'd like to think about or have me research prior to our next meeting. I'm going to ask that if you visit any of these parks prior to the next meeting and you see a spot that looks like a good place for a marker, that you would send me pictures of what you see. Also, I would encourage you to look for markers and public art that you like. And again, share those pictures to me 3 days before our next meeting so that I can share them with the group in a PowerPoint. But that's all of the PowerPoint. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we can just chat. So does anybody have any thoughts, things you like or things that you don't like? Or
Tegan, just a quick question. This will be on the city website, the meeting, will that be on the city website? If
I
we want
believe
to
so, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I really liked the pictures you shared, Tegan. It was a very good, you know, a good spread of different kinds of styles, and that was really nice. I just wanted to share a thought I had. In San Francisco, you know, they created these hearts everywhere, and it's quite fascinating to just come across something, or even they've included it in movies and things where you search the hearts. And I thought, you know, since we are actually doing something here, if we could tie, you know, the parks together in some way, that would be really nice. I mean, of course, we are not thinking of doing all the parks, but it would be fun to have maybe a bench in particular, you know, parks where they're all kind of similar, or colors or colorful things where people want to go and find it, or even the wonderful shade that was there. Something like that, which ties everything together. Just a thought. I mean, we have to look a lot more, but thought it would be good to tie it together.
That's an important thought for you guys to determine. Do you want the historic markers to match from park to park or be different from park to park?
Yeah.
And they, you know, you could put benches in some and interpretive signage in others or something like that, or you could decide that we're going to go with a look that's the same for all the parks. And then when people see this, whatever it is, they know that that's going to have historical information on it. And, you know, that's where they would find it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Tegan, in terms of the cities here in the South Bay, or maybe in East Bay too, are there any cities that at this point are way ahead of us in terms of park markers that you recommend that maybe one or other of us visit and take a look?
Frankly, I don't know of anybody who has what I would consider art markers.
Okay.
There are some that have the interpretive signage and have, you know, started to use that more consistently through their pieces. That's probably the closest thing. The bronze plaques here within Milpitas and in many cities, they don't match because they've been installed at different times and by different groups. So I think we would be interested in at least considering whether there's some value in getting them all to look the same, whether that's, you know, by the same artist doing all of these over the course of a couple of years, or if it's the same kind of a thing and multiple artists are doing it, but it's all going to be a bench or it's all going to be a mural.
Okay, I have Joe will jump on me as soon as I bring this up as a question, but what are we trying to accomplish by marking the parks? Are we trying to recognize the significant historical event or person, and who is interested in that? Are we trying to find a way to elicit a higher level of interest from people visiting the city? And if so, should that play into how we go about the markers? You know, I don't have an answer to that. I'm just raising the question. You know, and also, and I would ask Joe this, of the 18 parks, how many of those parks, and I know at least 2 or 3 that are very significant, both historically, etc. But what about all the others? Is it more of a memorial to an individual or to an event? I guess I'm asking the questions. I don't have any answers to this, but to me, they would play into how we go about recommending markers. If we could find a way to come up with something that is somewhat consistent between the parks, but also offers some sort of attraction, but also some interest and would invite people from outside that tie in with the hiking trails and the biking trails and so on, so that you've got a story, a theme that's running through the city. So, you know, just initial thoughts.
Joe, your mic.
Joe, you're going to have to, yeah. You're muted, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, actually, I'm just glad that we've started this introduction, because that was one of, before I came to this meeting, I was basically thinking about John's point, which is what are we trying to accomplish with the markers? I mean, I like the idea of artistic markers, but then as far as the name parks go, I would be inclined to say that the vast majority of the people who live in Milpitas actually don't know who any of these people are.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of, say, Sinnott, they may know because they may have children in John Sinnott's school. Okay, but generally speaking, many of these parks are named for pioneers who were absolutely significant in the development, in the early development of Milpitas, you know, post gold rush, and because of that, in other words, the names of many of these people are 100 to 150 years old, if you will, in terms of when they came here. That's not going to be common knowledge. So there's this question that's kind of begging for information. The question is, can we come up with a really interesting idea about how to incorporate information in what otherwise is also an artistic, or has some artistic aspects of it that act as a eye magnet. In other words, the first thing you may notice, if you had the common shape, and if you had a, maybe the idea is an artistic framing of information, but if you had something that's consistent, as you've indicated, you've taken to, that's consistent within the parks, and is something that is an eye magnet, then maybe we can fulfill several purposes at the same time. But I would think the underlying thing is the message, which is in terms of name parks, who those people are, because otherwise it's this great mystery of, well, who's that? And like I said, some of these people are actually, in terms of Milpitas history, are famous, and yet generally speaking, relatively unknown.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of a paradox, right? To be both famous and unknown. So anyway, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. I'm really intrigued by the idea of the markers. There's some comments that I would make. For example, you can do really interesting things with electronic signage, but there are a number of things that I would be, and also you talked about etched glass. And there's a lot that can be done with etched medium today, but I'm wondering about the following thing. One, I'm going to refer to two parks. One is the Alvisa Adobe Park, which is actually gated and locked. So it's accessible only during daylight hours. And yet, it was about a year or two ago that I reported to the city that it had been extensively tagged. The buildings that were there, for example, the apricot shed had been tagged, the tank house had been tagged, the interiors of both bathrooms had been tagged. And so anyway, so that's one park where I've actually seen explicit tagging. And today, because I'm on PRCRC, and one of the parks that we've been asked to visit is the skate park, the Milpitas skate park, which is interesting. But the sign, the uniform sign that generally we'll find at all of the parks announcing the name, the sign has been tagged. And for example, removing the tagging from the Alvisa Adobe was actually pretty straightforward. It could be dealt with basically with paint. But if you take a lettered sign, such as the Milpitas Park, the skate park, it's the lettered sign, and removing the tagging is potentially a more interesting challenge. So there's, it's the kind of thing that we probably wouldn't think about, but it's the kind of we wouldn't necessarily expect people to do. But like I say, I'm already aware of the fact that two parks have undergone tagging and so on. So so whatever we do is really an interesting challenge, because of course I would hate to see tagging on artwork, and I'd hate to see tagging on informational signage too. So I don't know what the solutions are, although I think when we choose the format and the medium and so on, we should be careful to think about the ability to correct problems such as tagging. So if it were an informational sign, maybe we have to have a clear laminate. If it's a sign of some kind, maybe we need a clear laminate so that we can actually, the laminate is different from the actual sign itself. So we can clean the laminate, the translucent screen over it, probably fairly easily. And if we couldn't, it's more easily replaced, as opposed to something that's much more involved in terms of possibly real artwork and information embedded into some kind of a plaque structure of whatever design that we think might be the most interesting design. So, basically, whatever we do, it might be worth thinking about as some kind of simple strategy to protect it, which makes it easy for park personnel to clean it when somebody wants to do something personal and negative to something like that.
Very good point, Joe. Crystal, you've been at the PRCRC meetings, so you have a perspective on what people were hoping to accomplish with these markers. Maybe we've lost Crystal temporarily.
Well,
Rosanna, you,
whilst,
She's muted.
whilst we're waiting for Crystal, uh, can we differentiate between a marker and signage? Is there such a thing as a differentiation between the two? Joe's reference, I think, to electronic markers sort of suggested to me that, you know, maybe we could have signage that actually is giving you a story. I don't know. I'm just suggesting, but done in a very artistic way, but with a screen that basically is giving you a digital story or background or whatever.
mhm, mhm. So yeah, I mean, lots of types of digital ways to, you know, increasingly people are putting digital portions to public art.
Right.
And putting it into, if you think about museum displays that are interior to a museum, they have,
Yep,
you know, video or audio that goes with,
right.
and you know, those things can add up quickly, but they're certainly technologically possible. Yeah.
How much funding is slated for this, and
Well,
where is the funding coming from?
Well, it's probably coming, at least in part, from the Public Art Fund, and how much is available for it is dependent on this group and what you recommend. You have 18 parks that need some sort of a marker over the
Yeah, I did a tally up already.
years. So yeah, so I mean, if you go with, you know, a pricey marker, that can add up really, really fast.
Yeah.
Rosanna, can I ask you, since Crystal doesn't seem to be able to join us at the moment with audio, you've been at the meetings too. So can you share any background on what PRCRC was thinking about with these markers?
I think mainly to, again, like what both John and Joseph has said, is the historical, you know, what is behind that name. There's, and, you know, the 18 that you pointed out, Tegan, is like, you know, knowing that I didn't know about Murphy Park. That's the first I've heard of it. And so those things to the Parks and Rec Commission is something that they can tie in to, you know, their work plan in terms of this historical value of the parks. And I think just even having, you know, the samples that you've provided, like a 1-page, who is Martin Murphy? What is the significance contribution he's made for Milpitas? I think it's a great way to tie in all these parks, and then eventually, you know, and a lot of these ideas are not new, because a lot of cities in the Midwest do it, is they do a historical trail visit where kids and families can go, and you make it either educational or a family scavenger hunt, you know, those kinds of things. And so I think that's the goal, is to just, again, as a Milpitian, well, I'm a transplant Milpitian. I've been here longer than where I grew up. It's interesting to find out. And it's, you know, just a historical list of homes and buildings in the city. I read through that blue book, Joseph, and I'm sure you've all seen it. It's interesting. Like, I really am in awe to know that, you know, and my daughter and I went up to where the 4100 Calaveras, is that what's his name's house, this old school up there. I didn't know that's where it was.
Yeah, the Laguna
Right?
School.
Yeah, I didn't know. And I'm kind of like, he lives there? And I'm like, no, that's the property in the front, and to have the home on top. Bill Hare.
Yes,
I was
Bill
just like,
has property.
this is, yeah, exactly. So it's just to me, it's amazing. It's again, there could be so much that this group, both PRC and arts, can do for the community, and it's. I think I was telling Renee that this is a really nice goal to have as Milpitas nears its, I don't know how many years that we are. What year did we get?
53?
No, I'm sorry,
54, I think it was.
54. Yeah, as we reach that milestone, I'll be like, this is great. This is a great opportunity for the group. So that's just from what I've heard in the meetings, and again, I think it's interesting, and I look forward to what the subcommittee brings forward in terms of their ideas, because we've got the members here are very familiar. They have a lot of historical knowledge, and to me that's so important. It's not growing up here, but learning now. It's like it's amazing. It really is.
I actually saw Rosanna, what she was talking about with the park being a place where history is kind of in a city near Chicago called Evanston, where a huge park was devoted to pioneers and not just, different people in historical, in the history world, not just America. And it was very interesting, but they did also incorporate a lot of artwork, very modern artwork, randomly in the park. And it was all metal and it looked very fabulous. It was just to go and find each one of them. People were biking, stopping, taking pictures. So it was something quite interesting. The other question I had is, we have the Measure F committee. And so does any of that funding come to this or no?
I am afraid I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I will have to ask that then. Okay.
Tegan, can I ask, well, maybe it's Rosanna has the answer. Why were these 18 parks selected? Is there a particular reason for that?
These are the ones that are named after someone.
Okay.
Others are just named after us. Others are named after a street, but the street may be named after a person.
Right.
Yeah, but Hidden Lake or Foothill, those would be examples of not named for a person.
Yeah. So I've got a follow-up question. I somehow I've got, once I get the bug in something, I don't give up very quickly. And I kind of like the idea of relationship between the hiking trails and pedestrian walks and so on, with the parks. And I'm just wondering how many of these 18 parks actually tie in with the hiking trails.
I don't know,
I
but that's
guess
an interesting
we can
question.
check that out.
I could, yeah.
The Hetch Hetchy, for instance, I guess it starts really at the Berryessa Creek. What is it now? The Santa Maria, and it goes all the way up to the high school, through to Sunny Hills. So, I don't know how many of those parks are included in this, but to me, there's an opportunity for you to be walking, learning about the city, and actually getting good exercise. So I don't know. It's worth, I think, pursuing something like that. And is there? Well, these are all named parks, right? So. Yeah.
Actually, the Hetch Hetchy Trail, John.
Yeah.
I'm trying to dig in my head for the name of the park there at Escuela across from the high school, that little pathway there. But the one to the north is Gill, and that leads down into what's now called Sunny Hill Augustine Park.
Right.
There's 4 or 5 parks I think, that are on the Hetch Hetchy Trail. And maybe all of them, but possibly not one of them might be named. I'm just trying to go through my mind quickly, and but it goes, that's definitely the long trail inside Milpitas, is for sure.
So, Tegan, or to the commission, why not having a plaque that describes exactly why it's called the Hetch Hetchy Trail? We're walking on the Hetch Hetchy, right? I mean, but there's a history there. There's some history there. The Hidden Lake, the same way. So that's not right on the same path, but why should we necessarily be afraid of selecting no-name parks, that no person named parks? And could we marry this with the proposed, I guess, plan for the parks and the trails, the hiking trails, and so on, which I think is part of the PRC present commission charter, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to change the ground rules, so I'm not. That was
Well, right. For this particular subcommittee, our ground rules are the people, the parks named after people. But that's not to say that at some point in the future, parks that have historical significance that are not necessarily named after a person might be treated in a similar manner.
Mm-hmm.
Tegan, I'm part of the Measure F oversight committee.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to be meeting again end of this month, and they're kind of now slotting how much money is going to what. And
Mm-hmm.
I would want to propose this idea, because that is something which I can at least propose. So in that case, how do I, what number and how can I propose to them that this is something we are doing, and whether they're willing to put away some money from that.
I can't answer the question because I don't know if Measure F, I don't know if that funds are available for any use in the city, or if they're for specific things.
It is for
like
specific city oriented things. And there are some which are, like for long range planning. And so, there is money set for long range planning, and this could be put into that long range planning. And I will kind of propose it, but I definitely would need to have someone eventually to present money and how much it would be costing, and how much they should be keeping aside.
So with guidance that you guys give at this meeting, I'm going to have to do more research before our meeting on the 24th. And maybe at that meeting, I'll have some ideas of, approximately, if you wanted to do this kind of a marker, it might cost this. And if you wanted to do that kind of a marker, it would cost this other amount. So I was hoping that we would kind of get some sense today to get started on things that might work or might not work. And then I'll be happy to come to you with some rough numbers.
Okay.
I'm not sure that I'm ready to give you any clear direction.
No, I'm not expecting people to make a decision today. I just wanted to kind of get a feeling, like, oh, I hate this idea, or I really like this idea, anything that people can share in that regard would be helpful. Like, do you want the markers to double as furniture or other, necessary components in a park, or do you just want them to be an art and history piece and stand alone? Do you want, you've kind of, John, you've indicated you have an interest for the pieces being near trails, potentially, so that if you're biking, you don't have to get off the bike and walk too far to find the thing. It's kind of close to the trail. So that tells us a little bit about what might be what we're looking at. So, so, you know, if it's a restroom building, that might not be right on the trail, you know, or a wall or something, but the smaller standalone pieces could be situated on a trail.
Are any of the parks that are listed down in the Midtown area, Main Street?
Yeah,
Yeah.
O'Toole, which is South Main Street, before you get down to the fire station 1, if you know.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
The O'Toole, and actually it goes from Main to Able on the diagonal, according to the original O'Toole Lane, that from what was then, you know, the old Oakland Highway, Mission Road, back to the mansion, right, at the building. But anyway, so O'Toole is there. Tom Evat, who was an early mayor, that's just to the north. Again, it spans that same thing. It stretches between Main Street and Able. I think that's the only 2 parks that are on Main Street in town, and they're actually at the southern end of town, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, if we think of the center of town, well, the center of town would either be close to, it depends on how we want to think of this. One way to think of the center of town would be like the old Campbell's Corners, where Sarah Way comes in, because that's the Alvisa Road, Mission Road intersection, hugely important historically. Or the other way that you would somehow decide on what the center of town is, which is actually a northern bias, is what used to be the Calaveras Road before the overpass, which is currently Carlo.
Yeah.
Right, you know, which is a block north, but the only things north of that are like the library and the.
But the library was the schoolhouse, right?
Correct. Yeah, actually, it was the second schoolhouse.
Okay.
The first schoolhouse, you know, if you're thinking Main Street and Weller Lane veers off to the left at the north end of the library.
Yeah.
Yeah, that property where those townhouses are on the north side of Weller Lane.
Yeah.
That was where the first schoolhouse was.
Yeah.
The 1856 schoolhouse was there, and that burned. And the 1916 schoolhouse is Milpitas Grammar, basically what I regard as the second Milpitas Grammar, where the library is. But so they were within half a block. That was a very important part of town. But business really kind of, the core of business was basically the old Alviso Road, today's Sarah Way, and Main Street. That was the center of business per se. And then things were to the north, and at the very northern end is the grammar school that you mentioned, and either the original one or the replacement to it, and things to the south. It's interesting to in a way, what we don't actually have is an interesting core to the city that's historical. I mean, we have it in terms of the history record, but you don't see it as an architecturally interesting historical place to visit in terms of downtown Milpitas per se. But there are a number of very significant historical buildings there. But we don't have an old town. Maybe that's the way I should phrase it. If you go to some cities, there's an old section. And we don't have a place that's filled with restaurants and bookstores and so on and so forth, and that might carry on the sense of Old Town, like Old Town Los Gatos.
Joe, we're working on that. Okay.
Yes, but anyway, you understand my point, right? But yeah, I understand your point about where's the center of the historically, Main Street really is the heart of Milpitas, historically.
Yeah.
Is there any?
I thought about signage, and so I'm basically, I don't expect that we necessarily go this way, but getting a couple ideas to focus on and then to propose alternatives too. One of the things that interested me in what you showed, Tegan, was there was kind of a black tower, if you will, that was that was all informational signage.
Mhm.
That format has some interesting possibilities that I'll explain in a second. And another format is just a more conventional sign, but not a brass plaque. And I'll tell you why in each case. So now I'll back up. The vertical one, which was that black frame, similar to, it's not a black frame, but there's a kiosk. I call it a kiosk, but there's kind of an art kiosk in the Alvista Adobe Park that has all kinds of historical, individual little historical signs and with photographs and pictures and so on around it. So that black one, for example, one of the things that that format provides is the possibility to have both art, real art, and historical presentation. So it actually allows, and again, I think art, and maybe as you pointed out, if we had a consistency in shape and some kind of consistency with placement, but the key is you want some kind of an eye magnet that draws people's attention, and because what's not going to draw their attention first is textual information, because you have to be close to it to really, starting to lock into it. So if you're trying to pull somebody to the historical information, then art can be used as that way to pull people to it. And that could work in just a simple sign, like a plaque, if you will, but a simple sign, probably rectangular and horizontal. One idea is, since we're talking about named parks at the moment, is maybe the left third or so, we can work out about proportions, but the left third or so could actually be a portrait, an artistic portrait of the pioneer or the person for whom, because they're not all pioneers, most of them are pioneers, but they're not all pioneers. So, man, it would be large enough to, again, provide that attention when somebody's a little more distant from the sign itself, and then they're drawn to the sign to look at maybe the art and appreciate the art. And then if it were actually, for example, a portrait, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a realistic portrait, it could be impressionist or something like that. But the sign itself then, again, and you're absolutely right, signs these days, you can incorporate art into text and so on. That's really doable because the technology is such that it's all a digital image, if you will. And so you can intermingle other pictures and information in it. But I like the idea of somehow using art where it's big enough to get attention, but also as the way in which to pull people. And again, if there's a pattern, then people will know that like 18 of these parks, well, that's the place where I'm going to go find information, is when I see that particular art presentation, maybe from the distance while I'm walking, or maybe if there's a play zone. Not all of the parks have play zones. But if there's a play zone, and if what we're doing is somewhere in that general vicinity, either where tables are, where they might be able to sit, or whether there's play zones for kids, the key is just to, oh, well, I know I could go look at that if I want to know something about the park. Anyway, those are just ideas, and I think that those are probably just beginning ideas, and we'll come up with something else, but it's a way to start.
Joyita, we should have him on the art commission.
I absolutely agree.
Crystal, I don't know if you can hear us, but I'm going to ask again if you can. Do you have anything you want to share with us?
Hi. So I like the idea of kiosks and like having art and writing, maybe even a QR code if people are more interested in the history, if they don't have time to read it. That's my idea.
Yeah, I like that
Great
QR.
from Joe. That's good.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Is there
very.
anything that anybody can think of that you would like me to do some homework on between now and the 24th? Stuff that you wish I'd presented to you in?
No, I don't. Other than the you said there was a website. What was the website?
It's hmdb.org for historical markers database.org.
Okay.
And it's not going to have artistic ones. It's primarily going to be the brass plaque sort. But it does give you a wide variety of those. So.
Okay. And, you know, maybe this is redundant, but is it possible to look at the proposed improvements for the parks, trails, and so on, and see how they connect with these 18 in any way, whether they're not immediately on top of them, but maybe close enough?
Yeah, John, I did note that you were interested in that, so I will find out where they fall on trails. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
As long as we're talking about trails and pathways and so forth, I do just want to throw out one idea that I couldn't find an example of to put on the PowerPoint quickly enough, but I think I mentioned brass plaques embedded in sidewalks as an option. And there is a movement in Europe in certain cities where they've got what are essentially very fancy medallions in the ground, and people come and do rubbings on the medallions as a souvenir, you know, to take with you. And you can even get t-shirts made where they've painted over the medallion and then used it as a stamp on a t-shirt. So something like that might be interesting if you're trying to follow a trail. That the Hetch Hetchy, you know, and I don't know where we would necessarily affix artwork along the Hetch Hetchy, but I do want to caution that is some of that land is not city land, and
Right.
most of it is not city land. And so we are really limited on what we can do along that trail. You can't dig down very far. So things that have a big base, so anything that's really tall, you aren't going to be able to do right along that waterway or water pipeline.
I think actually Joyita asked you a question during a recent art commission meeting too, which she didn't bring up, and that was in terms of landscaping or water. Can that be tied in some fashion?
Maybe, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, landscaping and waterscaping can be part of art. I don't know how feasible from an expense standpoint to do it over and over again, you know, at multiple parks. And if your focus is on the history, then it's hard to convey history in those mediums.
Right.
You know?
Well, we'll have to find out whether Measure F can help us with those.
All right.
So I think, you know, the idea of having that kiosk with the picture and all the information, that is a really great idea. And we should kind of, that would give a lot of information. And we see during parks and during summer, the parks are full of people and little kids and, you know, park parties and things like that. So we also have to look at, you know, like the artwork, which is attractive to little kids, and even the stuff that is being put on, if there is a way for them to get some information also. All of that writing can be appealing to an older person, but how can we make it a little more engaging and yet simple enough information for elementary, middle school, so they also get some idea of, say, who is Martin Murphy. And you know, so to also keep in mind the people who come to visit the park. Yeah, so that's something we could think about when you know, we do the digital version. It could be something simpler that they can just press things and see a basic little story of who Martin Murphy was. And I found it so engrossing to hear what Joseph had to say. And so that would be a lovely thing for them to pick up that, okay, he lived next to so-and-so person and this is how he was, and
Mhm.
just a little bit. So yeah, I think we're all going on a very good track here.
Okay, good. Well, you guys have given me some stuff to work with. You all know how to reach me. If you have a brainstorm between now and the 24th, you see a image you like, or visit a park and have a thought about, where something might go, please shoot me an email, give me a call. I will try to put together some more ideas, and I'll kind of steer toward that idea of a kiosk-y type thing, and maybe show you some different kinds of kiosks and how, how we might incorporate art and the historical information on the same structure. So good. Okay, I think this was a productive meeting. I appreciate your time. I know that PRCRC meets this evening, and we need to keep our meeting to the time schedule here so that they can get on and get ready for that one. So I guess I'll thank you all for being here tonight. And
Thank you, Tegan. Thank you for the preparation. I
You're
just
welcome.
noticing on the 24th, our subcommittee meetings from 5:30 to 6:30, and then we have an art commission meeting at 7 o'clock. So
That's right. Yeah. So we use the two commission meeting nights for our subcommittee. So yeah. All right. I'll see you on the 24th, and I hope to hear from you if you have any good ideas between now and then.
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Take care, Joe.
Thank you.